In today's video, we're going to talk about how to stay motivated during longer comic projects. Welcome back to Pencils and Stories. My name is Henrike and I make and teach comics. If you want to make your own comics, then subscribe to this YouTube channel for weekly videos. Let's face it, some of our comic projects just turn into really long stories, and it takes many years often to finish them. And then during the process, we may run into problems. We might have a page that's just not working with us. You run into some story problem and it just becomes a little bit harder to work on your comic. And in those moments, it might be really tempting to start dabbling with other ideas or to work on some other stuff and avoid our comic for a little bit. And our motivation feels like it's dwindling. Sometimes it's just not as fun. So how can we create some more motivation? How can we pump ourselves up again so we can work on our comic? Now I'm going to give you some tips in this video that I hope will help you. And the first tip I always give when I help people to start their own comics is to put as much stuff in your comic that you love. And that goes for subjects, that goes for designs, and that goes for anything you love to draw, certain story tropes, certain kinds of characters. And not everything you love might be as fun to draw. So the what do you love to draw question is also very important, but put as much stuff in your comic as you love, because that will give you the highest chance of succeeding and staying motivated during the process. Because yes, you might have a difficult scene that you're working on right now, but there actually might be a scene coming up that you've been really looking forward to, and it has all the stuff that you like. So thinking about, fun stuff coming up in your comic can actually help you find that motivation again and have some extra incentive to get over this hurdle and to get to the next scenes. And in that same vein, if you feel like you're stuck in a certain point in your story, or you're just not feeling it, try and think of the fun stuff that is coming up. Or even if you have some, take some free time and just sketch some of your favorite scenes that are coming up. It always really helps me to get motivated to think about all of the cool scenes that I have in my head coming up, and they might not show up for a while, but just sometimes just do some sketching for yourself, to get into a different scene, a different setting, have your characters be in different places in their journey and stuff, to shake things up a little. And just do this for yourself. You can even tease your audience with it, maybe a little bit, but it might be spoilery as well. But that stuff can be really helpful to stay in your story, but also be in a completely different scene, in a different environment. And then when you're fired up again, tackle that one scene again, because now you have more motivation to actually progress, because you want to eventually get to that scene. One very important thing to keep motivated is to know exactly why you are doing this comic. Maybe you haven't really thought about it too much other than it's just fun, but fun is also a very good reason, obviously, but maybe you have some deeper lying motivation of doing this. Like, audiences come and go, but what is it inside yourself that made you specifically want to do this specific story? Is it something in the story that you really want to get out? Is it a certain style that you wanted to learn? For me, for example, one of the main reasons I make Recollection City is because I want to prove to myself that I can make a long comic. I really linked Recollection City to stories from my childhood, like the stories that me and my sister came up with. It changed a lot. Like, it's absolutely not the same anymore, but that's where it started. So I have a lot of nostalgia connected to this story. And like I said, I want to finish this. I need to prove to myself that I can finish this. That's a very strong motivator for me. It's more motivating to me than, say, something like I want to build an audience, because that's kind of vague. I have certain dreams for my comic, for it to do well and stuff, but I actually have less control over that than having a tangible goal like I'm going to finish this comic for me, for myself. If you have any inner motivation for you to do this comic, maybe you just wanted to make something very fun, just make something fun, or you're making the story that you wish you had when you were younger, or whatever the reason is, try and connect with that. If it's something simple, like I just want to make something super pretty, or I want to make something that makes people laugh, that's also very good motivation. And try to keep that in mind. That's also a good question. What's in it for me? What's in it for you? Why are you doing this? What are you getting out of it? And it sounds very selfish, but when it comes to motivation, you are the person who needs to be doing this, and you are the person who needs to see this comic through. So why are you doing it? You're probably not getting paid for it. Like, the majority of you watching will probably not be paid to do this comic. And if you are, then I'm super happy for you. But even the money on some days might not be enough motivation for you. You probably also still have something inside you that makes you want to do this specific project. So try and find what that is, and that might actually motivate you on some of the days. Like, put it on a post-it note somewhere where you can see it, or have a very specific vision of you getting to your goal. That sounds really vague, but let me explain what I mean. For example, I want to throw a party when Recollection City is over, because it's going to take me many years to do. It's a long comic. When it's done, I 100% want to throw a party. And that's a very specific vision I have in my head. And, you know, if you can find something like that you can actually envision and actually see in front of you, then that is something that you know that you are working towards. Something super simple that often motivates me is having playlists that have songs that you associate with your comic. It can be songs related to characters, it can be songs related to certain scenes, just songs that for you have kind of like the atmosphere of your comic, or maybe have messages that are the same as some of the messages in your story. I listen to a lot of instrumental playlists whenever I'm working on my comics, so eventually I just start associating those playlists with my comic, or I will have certain songs that I was playing when I was working on certain scenes, so now in my head those songs are related to the scenes. So music for me is a very, very big motivator, because, you know, I can listen to it and immediately be transported either to a certain scene in my comic, I can connect with a certain character, or I think back to scenes that I've already drawn, and it just brings me in a certain mind space where I'm more likely to work on my comic. I actually have a routine that I go into the city, I go into a cafe, a little bit harder right now because of the corona stuff, but I go into a cafe, I sit down, I have a certain playlist that I always play when I work on my comic or when I do writing. I put it on, I'm in that space, and I'm much more likely, that's more of kind of like a routine, but I'm just much more likely to actually start working on my comic. The next tip has a little bit of a caveat, because this can become a pitfall. But don't be afraid to change up your workflow every now and then, just to shake things up. Like, don't make enormous changes, because those are usually very time consuming. But small little changes in your workflow, just using different pencils, different paper, just like switching to post-it notes for your thumbnails for a while, or doing your sketches in a certain program at one point might actually just shake things up a little bit more, so you're kind of thinking about what you're doing again and how you're doing it and stuff, and get you out of the day-to-day same old. But like I said, changing up your workflow can actually become very time consuming, and don't do it too much, and don't use it as an excuse to procrastinate, because sometimes that is procrastination. You know, like, oh, I need to optimize, you know, I need to optimize my process. And then before you know it, you're doing all kinds of tutorials and making all kinds of brush like experiments and stuff, and you're not working on your comic anymore. I'm incredibly speaking from experience right now. Use with caution, but that might actually be something that might help you. And the last and biggest tip is know thyself. Know what makes you tick. Know what are pitfalls that you fall into that you know, before you know it, you are now watching cat videos on the internet instead of working on your comic. Also know what kind of routines and what kind of habits can actually help you. I talk about it here and there in certain videos. I might look some up and post them in the description. Not every habit works for everybody, but if you can figure out how you work best, like for example, I work best outside of the house, so I go into a cafe and I go into work there. And I just know that when I sit down and I put on my playlist and I put my phone in my bag, that I have the least amount of distractions and I can work for a long period of time, even when certain scenes are hard. And that is a tip I want to give you too. Like, sometimes you just need to take a hurdle. It might really feel like you've lost motivation, but sometimes just forcing yourself to sit for 10 minutes or 15 minutes every single day, do a little bit of work, and eventually the hurdle will be taken and you can go on maybe to more fun scenes or whatever. You know, use as much as possible to make the process as fun as possible for yourself. And in order to do that, you need to know how you work and what you get motivated by. Like, some people will maybe just get motivated, like, I cannot do that because I don't have that much self-discipline, but some people might actually go like, if I finish this page, I can take an evening to just play a game. I will just play a game whenever I feel like it. So that's not really a reward for me. I have a tendency to take rewards whether or not I've done something. So that's not really a system that works for me. But if it works for you and you have that constraint and it's like, no, I finish this page and then I have like a gaming evening. If that works for you, like, do that. But try and figure out little things that you can trick yourself basically with, because let's face it, a lot of this stuff is tricking ourselves into doing the work. And sometimes you just have to do stuff that you don't like. It's the same in every job, and comics are no different. Even though it's your passion project and it is your story, I don't think there is a creator who literally loves every single second of that comic. Maybe there are, I don't know. I'm not one of them. You know, it often had to do with my own mindset at that point, or I made it way too complicated and stuff. Like last video's page that I talked about for a long while, the page that I thought wasn't too successful, that was such a mindset thing and such a not planning thing, and that's too, like, I feel my motivation dwindle whenever I'm not super clear on what I need to be doing, or I did not plan well, and now I run into all kinds of problems in my pages because I didn't thumbnail well enough, for example. Motivation is something that comes and goes. I just want to say that to a certain extent you can definitely force motivation. Oftentimes it is after I sit down that motivation comes, and I don't work purely on motivation. Sometimes you just need to sit down and do the work. Some people even say like they will never have motivation unless they sit down to work. Because if you sit down and you create an environment in which you can create, then often motivation comes. And often it comes after like 20 minutes of already drawing, of already working. That's when the motivation will show up. So also, if you don't feel it, just try it. Sit down for 20 minutes and see if it shows up. You know, sometimes it just takes a while to get into like the flow state. You know, it's that mode that you get into when it just flows right out of you and you forget what time it is, you forget that you need to eat and stuff. That really fun mode to be in. That sometimes just shows up after 20 to 30 minutes. And before that, you can wait for motivation, but it might not show up. And then it is a question, am I going to work without it, or am I going to wait on it? Then you don't have control of your workflow and your process whatsoever. So I don't recommend that. But yeah, that was my video about motivation. I hope there was some helpful tips in here. Key point, just trick yourself. Sometimes you just need to trick yourself. If you're a person who loses motivation because you don't really know what it is that you need to be doing and making a comic overwhelms you, then I want to recommend you check out the notification list for my upcoming course, How to Start a Comic. It's perfect if you don't want to figure out all of this stuff by yourself. It will save you a lot of time, a lot of brain space. You will know exactly what to do. So go to the link in the description, because there is a link there to the notification list. I'm launching the course on Kickstarter, and when the Kickstarter launches, I will send you an email if you're on that list. That was it for this week's video. If you found it valuable, leave it a thumbs up. It really helps engagement on my YouTube video, so YouTube keeps recommending it to other people. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel for weekly videos about making comics. And for now, I want to thank you so much for watching. Go out and make some comics.